Hello, I'm Donnie, and I'm 21 years old, and I have social anxiety disorder. Social anxiety disorder is also known as social phobia, and it is an intense fear of being put in social situations. I am okay with talking to people in chat rooms, or in emails or whatnot, in text. I'm okay with that. But I am very, very nervous about talking to people over the phone or in video chats or even face-to-face, especially face-to-face actually. It hasn't always been that way either. When I was younger, like elementary school and middle school, I was a very outgoing, random, bubbly person, and I was very silly. And I did have a lot of friends back then. But I did start moving around a lot after I turned 9. I stayed in the same school from kindergarten up until the 3rd grade. And I had a lot of friends around that time, but when I moved, I lost a lot of those friends. I talked to a couple of them through phone calls, but not for long after that. And I had to start making new friends at a new school. And after that, I just kept moving around over and over. I think all throughout school, right up to the end of high school, I went to 9 different schools, 9 or 10 different schools. So I would make friends. You're a noisy cat. I would make friends, and I would be there for a few months rather, to maybe a year or so, and then my parents would decide to move, and I would need to go to another school and make friends again. That mixed with some bullying from time to time. There weren't many bullies, but the bullies that I did have to deal with did go pretty far. I did get beat up a few times. I did get harassed. I did get called names. And it kept getting worse over time until I started pulling back. I started excluding myself from social situations, I guess. It got to the point where in my freshman year in high school, I had just moved to a different high school during my freshman year. And I had made 2 friends at my new high school. And that was it. I had moved once more. Yes, Jack. I had moved once more, and at my newest school, the very last school that I went to, I didn't make any friends at all. I was just the quiet kid in the corner of the room that nobody knew anything about. I never talked to anybody. I never, got involved with group activities or anything like that. People knew my name, and people knew what I looked like, and they knew that I was just that quiet kid, but they didn't know anything about me. And it got to the point where the other students would start, I would notice them start talking about me. And they started pointing out that I was very quiet, and I guess it made them nervous. The reason I didn't get involved with any other people is because they made me nervous. So anyway, I remained quiet, but I could still hear them talking about me. And they would say pretty intense things, I guess. I heard a few people saying that they expected me to come into school one day with an Uzi and just shoot everybody up. And saying things like, yeah, it's always the quiet kids, right? They knew nothing about me, but they thought I was hostile, I guess. Or maybe they were just joking around because of stereotypes. These 2 other students, they were in my algebra class. They started asking me questions, trying to get me to talk. They They were kind of jerks, to be honest, but it seemed like they actually did want to get to know me, even if it did mean that they had to put me down, I guess. They started asking me very personal questions. They asked me something, and I was like, well, screw it, I'll be honest with them. And I just straight up told them. I'm not going to go into detail about that, though. But the answer that they got was actually surprising to them. They were like, whoa, really? I was just joking around. They did start targeting me more and saying even more things about me. Things that I didn't really like, and that made me even more nervous to be around them, especially around the other people in that class that they had been talking to. So I stopped talking to them again. I would just stare straight ahead, like at the board, and they'd be over here next to me, like asking me questions and stuff. That made them even more nervous, I guess. They're like, oh, I'm making this kid angry. He really is going to get pissed off and like beat the crap out of me or something. So that made them even more nervous to be around me. So it's kind of like a back and forth thing going on. They're making me nervous, I'm making them nervous. Because of my social anxiety disorder, I was also having trouble in school academically. If I was ever having trouble with the work, I was too nervous to ask the teacher for help. That's what the teacher is there for, right? If somebody's having trouble, they go up and ask the teacher for help. I don't understand this. Can you explain it to me? I could never do that. Not throughout high school, at least. And that's, those are the years that mattered. Throughout middle school, I was just lazy. That's why I was flunking all the time. But high school, I knew that I did need to push myself. But I was too nervous to ask for help. And I ended up flunking anyway. I didn't have much confidence in myself, so I ended up just dropping out. And I went to a different school to get my GED. And of course, after I left high school, I needed a job. And I spent, I think it was 4 months, looking for a job. Really, the only thing I was doing was just applying online and waiting for a call back. I didn't actually go into any, businesses or whatever and ask for an application, or, if they were hiring, or if I could talk to a manager or whatever. And of course, that again was because of my social anxiety disorder. I couldn't push myself enough to see if I could get an interview, or even go up and just ask to talk to a manager about it. Eventually, I got lucky. I went into McDonald's, and luckily, they had just that week started looking for 6 new employees, and I was one of the people that came in that very week, and they were like, okay, you got the job. There wasn't much of an interview. It was just like, what do you think you could do back here? When are you available? And that was about it. So the interview wasn't too terrifying. I got the job and I worked there for 1 year. This was back in Florida. Eventually, my brother, he talked me into moving up here to Connecticut. And I thought about it for about a month. And finally I was like, sure, I could probably get a job up there. What was really going on in my mind, though, was I wouldn't have to... I could be more independent. I didn't want to live around a lot of people. In my house in Florida, I was living with my sister, brother-in-law, and their 2 kids. So I was constantly around people. And I was somewhat comfortable with them. But I wanted to be more alone. And that was one of the main reasons that I decided, yeah, maybe it would be okay to move to Connecticut. at this point in time, it's been over a year now, and I still don't have a job. My brother is working, and I'm home most of the time alone with my cat. My social anxiety has gotten worse. I do apply to jobs, but I still find it even harder now to go out and ask for an interview, or to talk to a manager or what have you. So my social anxiety disorder has made it much worse over time, much harder rather, to make friends and to get a job. Or right now I don't have, well, technically I do have friends. Some of you might consider them, I guess. I go into a certain chat room where I got to know the people quite well. I would consider them my friends, yeah. But I don't have any friends that I actually know, like, in person, that I can, like, go out and hang out with or whatever. The people that I know are all people I've met on the internet. I'm comfortable with them because I can chat with them in text, in a chat room. I'm perfectly comfortable with that. But because I don't have any friends in real life, I don't really get out much. And of course I don't have a job, so I don't have any money to go out, and do things on my own. So, in turn, I pretty much sit around the house on the internet all day because I'm too nervous to be around people, and I'm too nervous to go for an interview to get a job. It can get depressing at times, knowing that I don't have any friends, I don't have any money. What am I gonna do? I've considered therapy before. I would like to get over my social anxiety. But, ironically, my social anxiety is the very thing that's also preventing me from going to a therapist. I can't push myself to go and talk to somebody about myself. It just makes me very nervous. Other than that, I don't really have any ways to cope with my anxiety other than just excluding myself from society. One of the reasons that I'm making this video is because I wanted to get back into video making. I used to make videos on YouTube all the time. I was very active on YouTube. I would always act and be very silly and energetic and outgoing. And I would walk around in public with my camera doing strange things. And I haven't done that in a long time. Also, I figured since I don't really get to interact with people in person much, perhaps talking to a camera and seeing people's reaction online might kind of help with my anxiety. Hopefully, making videos for you guys will actually help my anxiety disorder and make me, help me open up more. I assume a lot of the viewers, if I have any at all, might also have social anxiety disorder. And that might have been what drew you into the video. So I would like you to tell me in the comments what you do to help cope with your social anxiety. What things do you do to help you become more outgoing and interact with people more often? Also, since I don't really have much of an audience on this channel, since this is my first video, in fact, I don't have an audience at all, I would also like to hear what you guys would like to see in the future, what you would like me to talk about, what sort of videos you would like me to make, questions that you have, I'll answer them. We can see where this channel goes from here. So I will talk to you guys later.